What's going on, guys? This is the Edge DFS. We are doing Sunday Night Football Showdown. Titans visiting the Packers. My name is Tyson Smith. I'm joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, what's going on, man? How are you? How were your lineups for Saturday Night Football? How'd you do?
I did okay. I was a little low on Derek Carr. I should have been a bit higher on him. And that hurt me a bit, but Gaskin going off was pretty nice.
Yeah.
Gastecki, he actually got some garbage points there with Fitzmagic in. So I think the biggest issue was having as much exposure to Tua. You were dead on yesterday saying I don't think we needed him. So that kind of ruined my night a little bit. But overall, I think we did pretty good considering just all the other gameplay in it. Now, the Cardinals game, I don't even give a shit about. I don't want to talk about it ever again.
Yeah, they deserved. Cardinals, I'm glad they didn't make the playoffs. Because if they made the playoffs, then this season would have been viewed as a success, and it definitely has not been. Can you tell we're a little jaded over here?
Yeah, I mean, dude, that was one of the most pathetic,
terrible
garbage games I've ever seen from a team with this much talent.
Yeah.
I mean, at what point do you decide to just start getting DeAndre Hopkins involved in the game? He should. Never mind. This will take up the whole show.
We called it. I mean, we know how this team is. Beathard, typically speaking, was relatively low owned, and I'm like, dude, don't sleep on Beathard, man. That team allows the opposing team's quarterbacks to crush them somehow. I don't know how or why, but it doesn't matter what quarterback they're playing, they find a way to make them look good. And I had a feeling, I didn't think they were going to lose. I didn't think the Cardinals were going to lose that game, but I thought it was going to be damn close, and it turned out to be worse than we thought. So anyways, guys, sorry. This is a little bit of a therapy session for us. Rest in peace season. But we'll move on. We'll move on to a game that actually has some real playoff implications here.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
Oh, we're going to talk about playoffs, Jim Mora. Titans right now they're tied with the Colts for the division lead, correct? They both have the same record. The Colts are winning right now, right? We're recording this on Sunday during the main slate, the early games. The Colts are winning right now, right?
Yeah.
Against the Steelers.
The Colts are up 24-14.
Oh, no, 24-20 right now. The Steelers must have just scored. Anyways, the point is...
They just scored.
The point is, if the Colts win, there's going to be a lot more. Either way, whatever happens tonight, there's going to be a lot to play for the Titans, as well as the Packers are the number one seed in the NFC right now, sort of competing with the Saints for that number one spot. So there's a lot to play for the Packers as well tonight. It's going to be a little cold. The weather's not going to be great, but I don't think it's going to affect things too much. It's not going to be lightning, or there is going to be a little bit of wind, obviously. I think it's gusts up to 25 miles per hour, but between 10 to 15 mile per hour winds. I don't think it's going to create a huge, you shouldn't have to adjust your lineup specifically for that, but I think it gives a boost to the running game, especially with a guy like Derrick Henry at this point of the year. He's primed to have a good game tonight. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on the weather overall?
I'm with you, man. I think that's going to benefit Derrick Henry the most. But I don't know. I really don't know if it's going to impact all that much in this game, just because I think both teams know what's on the line here. This is going to determine a lot of the seeding in the playoffs, and these are two very, very talented teams. So I think they're going to be able to keep that from being too much of a mitigating factor. These offenses are too good. At some point, they're going to accidentally score. So I just think that once they kind of get in a rhythm, it'll dictate what happens from there.
Yeah. I mean, these offenses are both super explosive. I think the Packers are clearly one of the best offenses in the NFL, but the Titans don't get as much credit as they deserve. I think they're a little bit all over the place. We don't always know what we're going to get from them. Are we going to get a 250-yard Derrick Henry game? Are we going to get a 500-yard passing game from Tannehill? What can we expect from these guys? And that's what's going to be difficult in this game. Not only that, but we're dealing with some serious salary restrictions here, and there's not a ton of we typically can find at least one or two value plays under 3K or something that we're like kind of comfortable playing. Like maybe not like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing to play this guy, but you can find two or three guys that you can rotate around typically. I don't know that we have a lot of that today. We do have some injury news that we can talk about. We're going to have some A.J. Dillon action potentially in this game with Jamal Williams out. So that could be our value there. But still, we're not looking at like Jeff Wilson Jr. type output at 30-something hundred with a guy who's starting. There's not that value that we need in this slate because look, there's like 6 players that I want to have in every lineup, but we're just not going to be able to afford it. So we're going to have to figure out who we need to like be under the field on. We can't play everybody today. It's just not possible. Do we fade one of the quarterbacks in this game? This is a real we're going to spend less time talking about each player and their position on this particular show because the more important thing is to talk about how do we fit. Like there's no debate about, oh, is Derrick Henry good and worth playing? Yeah, we want to play him. We like all these guys. We like the wide receivers from both teams. We just need to figure out how to fit them together. I think we're going to spend more time building today than we do talking about individual plays, although we'll still have the same format. We'll still go through each particular position, but we're just going to spend less time, breaking that down because I really think it's important to figure out how to be different, but not be too stupid where your lineups are just going to be in last place, So what are your thoughts on all that that we just talked about?
I like it, man. Honestly, I think that's going to be the better approach for this. Everybody knows who the main building blocks for this game are going to be, right? It's going to be a collection of 5 or 6 guys. So I think the best thing that we can do is maybe touch on some of the value that we see opening up, like you said, in A.J. Dillon, I guess is his name, but Tom Dillon. But look, I think once we get to the building section, that's when we're really going to be able to see what we're able to do. I don't know how I'm going to attack this slate yet. And you're right. I just want to start getting a kind of a feel of who we're going to need to have lower exposure to build the way that we want. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. And again, there's going to be some value that we'll be able to call out. And I think that's really going to be the second most important part of this. But the build strategy is definitely, I think, going to be where we can help people out today.
Yeah. So let's look at our Vegas lines here. This is obviously Tennessee visiting Green Bay. The weather is going to be pretty bad. In football, not necessarily as big of a deal, but it's something to think about. It's something to definitely talk about. How does that change things up for us? Do we give a little bit less of a boost to the kicking game and less to the defense? I read an interesting thing about, the defenses typically struggle more with snow because, the offense knows where they're running. The defense doesn't. So there's a lot more, loose footing, debacles like that. So the defenses and kickers kind of get we kind of will sort of start to fade them, I think, at a certain point. Maybe they'll get a little bit of a downgrade while the running game gets an upgrade. So it looks like this is a pretty close game here. You have Green Bay is at home, favored by 3. It's a 53.5 total. Green Bay's minus 176 on the money line with about a 64% win probability. I actually think this is a pretty interesting. This is very, very close. I mean, Green Bay is getting that 3-point home team. This is basically a pick 'em. So, do you think this is right? I feel like Green Bay has the advantage here, but Tennessee is a tough team, and I feel like Tennessee can absolutely come out and surprise some people and actually get a win here. So what do you think about this matchup? This is an interesting matchup, like Tennessee from the AFC, Green Bay from the NFC. It's a little bit of a unique matchup. I'm not used to seeing these teams play.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great game. I think everything about where this is coming in with the implied total, the spread, I think that's all spot on. I do give Green Bay the slight edge because they are at home, but I don't know, man. I think Tennessee absolutely has the ability to come out here and win this game. The best way to keep a good quarterback from dominating is to use a strong running game, right? And we all know that that's one thing that Tennessee has. So they have the ability to keep the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. And I think that, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but I think there's an opportunity to build a game script around that where you potentially fade Rodgers. And you're looking Derrick Henry kind of just taking over and going an onslaught from that route. But look, I think this is going to be a close game. This should be a very good game to watch. And honestly, if the Chiefs weren't in the AFC, I think this could be a potential Super Bowl matchup. Yeah. So, it's interesting. I'm excited for this game.
Yeah, this is going to be fun tonight. I'm really excited because we just haven't – I mean, look, last night we had a great ending to that game. Unbelievable ending, but we have not seen a lot of great showdown matchups. It's been lopsided, bad football, lots of penalties, stupid mistakes. I hope that this can be a really well-coached, well-planned out game that is good football. I'm tired of seeing bad football, man. I'm just tired of it. I'm almost to the point where I'm like, and with the injuries as well, there's dudes getting injured that I have 80% of in every freaking game. Now, it's getting very difficult to play NFL Showdown because of what's going on with COVID. They can't practice as much. These players aren't getting they're not getting contact practices. They're not really actually on the field together. So you're getting weird injuries. You're getting stupid football. It makes it almost impossible to consistently win on Showdown DFS NFL. It's just very, very tough. So I hope we get a really good game tonight, and I hope it's not a stinker like we've seen in the past. So let's move on to injuries here. We have some stuff to talk about. For the Titans, Jonnu Smith is probable. He'll most likely play. Khalif Raymond, probable. He'll most likely play. Jeff Swaim, probable. Excuse me. Looks like we have Adam Humphries is still out with head injury, probably concussion protocol. I'm not sure exactly what his issue was, but he is on the IR still. You jump over to the other side with Green Bay. Jamal Williams, this is big news because he's doubtful. Doesn't look like he's going to play in this game. I think, A.J. Dillon has been practicing this whole week with that second team. So Jamal Williams likely to be out. We, if you've watched any of our Green Bay Showdown content in the past, we love Jamal Williams. The guy has high upside, and he's always priced in the below 2,000 almost. He's always so low price. So the fact that Jamal Williams is out really hurts us, I think. But also with A.J. Dillon being able to step in, we just don't know what to expect from Dillon. So it's possible his ownership will be so low that we can get some huge leverage there by just saying, look, let's play A.J. Dillon in almost every lineup. That's a situation you can do, is just plug Dillon into a ton of lineups. And then you only have to really worry about him going off. And if he has a bad day, then you just move on. But with the building today, we're going to need to find the value. Tyler Ervin is out with a foot. He's in the IR. So that's basically A.J. Dillon is going to get a lot. He's going to be the only other guy really there that we can trust. But look, does A.J. Dillon just take over the Jamal Williams snaps? Jamal Williams, I think he, at certain parts of the year, he was getting 40% of the snaps. It just kind of depended on the game script. Or does that just mean Aaron Jones just gets fucking 90% of the snaps? How do you handle the Jamal Williams injury news?
Yeah, look, Aaron Jones doesn't get more than 75% of the snaps just at any given time. So I don't think that this is going to change much. I think Dillon has the opportunity to step up into that role, and we've seen him getting some love in some of these games that we watch with the Packers. So I don't think it's something that they're trying to shy away from necessarily. And honestly, the Packers on offense seem to be one of the more consistent teams I've seen so far watching this year. If it's working, I don't think that they're going to change it, right? And it's been working, kind of rotating this two-man backfield, and they wouldn't be giving guys like A.J. Dillon and Tyler Ervin any run in the backfield if they weren't showing some kind of talent or burst or added something to the offense. So I definitely think that that's where it's going to get interesting. I mean, I want to see what the initial projections for ownership are on A.J. Dillon, but especially with Tyler Ervin being down.
10% or less, which isn't
that's dumb,
fucking
right?
stupid.
So you don't even have to do anything to really play him, right? You don't have to go out there and get 50% exposure to differentiate yourself from the field. You just need a couple lineups with him. So at 1,400 with Tyler Ervin out, I just don't know that they're going to try and get any of these other guys in. You've got Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. So I would expect a pretty healthy split.
I feel like you can do I think the hand building situation here is going to be important. I'm not saying that you need to come out and hand build every one of your lineups, but I feel like for us, hand building certain game scripts will really help us. Like if we wanted to do, we're gonna have to figure out. I don't know that we can play Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and Devontae Adams in the same lineup this week, because then unless we think that Green Bay is going to just absolutely blow out Tennessee and we want to do like a 5-1 or a 4-2, like we're going to need to get some guys from Tennessee. So the decision we're going to have to make is most likely, is it Aaron Jones or is it Devontae Adams? Which one do we want? Now we could spread it out and just kind of be right around the field with both of them, or we can make a decision and say, I like Devontae Adams this week. I don't like Aaron Jones this week. It's a ballsy thing to do, but you're going to have to make some decision like that in this particular slate. And in that situation, if you're fading Aaron Jones, you can pair Devontae Adams with AJ Dillon, that sort of thing. And I'm also not afraid to put Aaron Jones and Dillon in the same lineup a lot. Like I'm totally fine doing that. But like a natural pivot would be to say, look, if Aaron Jones doesn't have a good game, maybe AJ Dillon can, vulture a touchdown or two inside the, the red zone. So anyways, let's just get right into this real quick here. We're going to go into the breakdown here. Break it down. All right. So we're starting with quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers at 11.6K and Ryan Tannehill at 10.6K. Now, typically speaking, Aaron Rodgers would be in the 12 to 13,000 range, but I think just with the pricing from Draftkings here in general, I think they had to sort of spread things out in order to make it possible to build a lineup this week. So Aaron Jones is 11.6K. Ryan Tannehill is only $1,000 cheaper. I'm sorry, Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, lots of Aarons here. Look, Tannehill right now is like the 5th highest owned player in this game. His captain ownership is hovering around 10% or lower. Aaron Rodgers is the 2nd highest owned. So look, can we fit both quarterbacks in a lineup this week? And is this just going to be more of a, like typically like I'll have like one quarterback at like 80% or 90% exposure across all my lineups. Is it this week we're going to have to just kind of stick around the field like 40 to 50% on both of these guys? Like how do you handle this?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're trying to spread yourself out, then yeah, I think it's a good idea to kind of stay with the field and do a bunch of variations of certain lineups. But if you're going to try and plan for a game script, then I mean, it really that's really going to determine what you think is going to happen. So I don't know that there's going to be an optimal without Aaron Rodgers and Ryan Tannehill. So I think I'm going to be using them as a core, and I'll probably be above the field on both of them, just in my builds, right? And that's more just because Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he's probably going to hit 25 fantasy points on this slate, and I can easily see Ryan Tannehill getting there too. The issue there is, I mean, if you decide to run both quarterbacks, you're going to have to fade one of the running backs or Devontae Adams. Yeah. And exactly. It's just that simple. So, again, I think you got to be wise when you're building with 2 quarterbacks on this particular slate, just because you are going to have some opportunity cost somewhere else. Now, if you think Aaron Rodgers is going to throw for 180 yards and 3 touchdowns to Devontae Adams, then you only need those 2, and you can fade Aaron Jones maybe. But I just don't know how you get to a winning slate without both quarterbacks tonight.
I think it's going to be tough, man. Look, Ryan Tannehill, one path to victory in a large field tournament is just saying, look, I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be needed potentially with Aaron Jones. And maybe they get out to a quick enough lead where they can just pound the ball. I don't see that is necessarily a good idea in my opinion, but that's one way to say, look, if I fade Aaron Rodgers and strictly go with Tannehill, or vice versa, if you just fade one of these, if you set a rule to have only max 1 quarterback per lineup, and focus that salary on getting A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, getting some of the other players from the Titans that you're going to need in this game. That could be a way to get different, because I think a majority of the field is going to and most of the optimizers are going to automatically plug in Rodgers and Tannehill because of their projections. So look, one way to get different would be to fade Tannehill. But look, then you're looking at, he's the 5th highest owned player. To me, that ownership is way too low on him, simply because I think that's what everyone is comfortable with. They're not comfortable fading Aaron Rodgers. They're comfortable fading Tannehill. But I think if you flip the script on it and say, look, I'm going to get a little bit more Tannehill in the field and go under the field slightly with Aaron Rodgers, maybe you can find some leverage there. But it's going to be tough, man. I'm not comfortable fading Aaron Rodgers. I want him in every single lineup, and I want Tannehill in every single lineup. It's just going to be difficult. It's going to be super tough. So let's move over to the running back side here for Green Bay. So we've got, let's see, no point in even talking about Mike Weber here or Patrick Taylor. I'm not even going to. I think Weber's picking up like 7% ownership. I'm not going to touch him. I'm comfortable with saying that A.J. Dillon is the value play here. He's at 1,400. That is pretty low. Aaron Jones at 9,400. That's a good price for him. But, still 9,400, that's a lot. So, as we can tell, look, Aaron Jones has the ability to he could break the slate. No question about it. And this is one of those guys that if you don't have him on particular slates, you just can't even cash. But if you see he's kind of all over the place here. It's pretty interesting to me. Like you could consider fading Aaron Jones. And I know that we had talked before the show. You were leaning towards potentially that, but we sort of, it's just tough to say. It's just tough to do it. But if you look at his numbers here, there's no doubt he can get you a 13 or 14 fantasy output, and at that price tag, I think you're not gonna be able to cash with a guy like that unless he gets his typical 25 plus points. So how do you handle Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon here?
I think A.J. Dillon is the top value on the slate. That's really all I have to say about him. We'll see when we start building that he's going to be necessary. I honestly think his ownership projections might be a little bit low right now. I expect him to be a little bit more chalky, but we said that about one of the cheap guys on, I think it was the Thursday night show. But the guy ended up coming in at like 20% ownership. So who knows? Who knows with some of these guys? Maybe people just aren't adjusting for news. And
well, Jeff Wilson was projected to be relatively lower owned. I think he in the 20s, and he ended up being like 60% owned or 50, or like he was high because everyone throughout the day was like, "Oh, this guy's a lock. Like, why wouldn't you?" And I feel like A.J. Dillon, whatever his ownership projection is earlier in the day, you have to consider possibly double it, or that it's going to be a little bit low, I think. Sorry to interrupt you, dude. Go ahead.
No worries. Look, it really doesn't matter to me when his ownership comes in. He's probably going to be like a cornerstone in my building blocks, just because I don't know what to do at this point without him, unless there's some other clear value that opens up. I'm all in on A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, I honestly, I agree with you, dude. Like, I feel like you could lock button A.J. Dillon. Like, I might do that. I know that sounds crazy, but like, I would rather lock button him and just have to worry about him going off and spreading out my exposure for these other really high probability plays, and just worry about one guy. And we know that Green Bay, their running back situation, it's whoever has the hot hand. It's up in the air. Like, Aaron Jones is not getting 90% of the snaps. It just doesn't happen. So, if this was a Jamal Williams situation, and look, A.J. Dillon's a big-ass dude, man.
Dillon!
You son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch.
He's a big dude, man. So this is the kind of guy you want in this situation. You know what? Let's actually really quick here. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna backtrack. We want to do the from the horse's mouth segment really quick. We have LaFleur talking a little bit about A.J. Dillon and his practice situation here. So let's actually hear from him real quick here.
Just want to know from the horse's mouth, what is the dealio?
Injuries, and maybe Jamal will be ready to go for Sunday, but you've been trying to get AJ in for quite a while. You might have to this week. Is he ready for whatever you throw at him?
Yeah, AJ's had a great week of practice. You can tell he's starting to get his wind back. Certainly, anytime you take that type of layoff, it does have an effect on you. And we're just really happy to have him back. He's looked good, and he'll be ready to go.
So I'm pretty sure he's referring to the COVID designation that he got in early November, and he's been out for a minute. He did come in and get a one rush for 18 yards last week, which was interesting after Jamal Williams got hurt. Look, let's just real quick hear from Vrabel. Both of these guys are so dry, I almost fell asleep trying to get through their press conferences. Vrabel, literally, he's Belichick Jr.
Hey, Mike, the forecast for Sunday night, temperatures in the teens, maybe colder than that with the wind chill, maybe some snow showers. Nice to have some cold weather today, tomorrow, or does it matter at this time of year? You just go play with it and deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if a couple days, I don't know if there's an acclimatization to cold, like there is heat. So, I think cold is a mental thing. I think heat has a physical effect. So, whatever it is, we'll go up there and try to play and execute the game plan and see where we're at.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks
Yeah, it was interesting.
For the lesson there. All right. So, anyways, guys, we're gonna move. So basically, if we're gonna take anything from what we heard from LaFleur, AJ Dillon, it's a wild card to play him. We just don't know how he's going to come back and play after being out for a few months or a month and a half or whatever it was. But he's is he a second round draft pick? I mean, he's up there, right? I mean, they spent a high draft pick on him, I thought. Do you know?
I have no idea. Let me look it up.
Yeah, look it up. Anyways, they want to get this guy involved. So the fact that he's healthy, I don't think we need to convince you guys anymore at a price tag of $1,400 that he's probably a pretty damn good play. It's not a crazy thing. So let's move over to the Tennessee side of things here. On the running backs, we'll quickly get to this. We've got Derrick Henry at 12.4K. He's expensive as shit, but this is the kind of guy similar to Aaron Jones, but I think way more so, that if there are situations where if you don't have him in your lineup, you are done for. So it's going to be hard to avoid Derrick Henry. I think he's a name, but he's also the third highest owned guy on this slate. So he's hovering with Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers as that top spot. He's 12.4K. Excuse me. You got Darrington Evans at 2K, and then you got Jeremy McNichols at 200. So Ellie, I don't know, man. What the hell are we gonna do with this situation? Can we play any Evans or McNichols? I don't think we can. But do you have your eyes on them at all?
No, I don't give a shit about those guys. I want as much Derrick Henry as I can. I think his ownership might be estimated at this point.
Yeah.
Just because of his price tag. I think people are going to understand that they need to start pulling away from him to build appropriately.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's necessary. I want to get as much exposure to him as I can. And I'm just going to be looking for any value that I can in this slate. I'm going to be finding ways to get decent punt plays in position so that I can jam in as many of these guys as I possibly can. You just don't know what Derrick Henry's going to do. He can touch the ball 15 times and rush for 150 yards. I don't know. I mean, he's going to get 3 touchdowns before halftime. This is the time in the season where you just feed Derrick Henry because he's so big, he's so physical, he's so hard to tackle. And when you're trying to tackle a 6'7", 340-pound guy running a 4.2 40 in Lambeau Field in 12-degree weather on hard ground, right? That shit hurts after a while. I don't know if the defense is going to be able to sit there and take that kind of pounding from him. So, look, I think you're going to get some free leverage by trying to jam him in. I mean, Granted, you're going to have to get creative somewhere else. But look, if you're uncomfortable with Ryan Tannehill, this might be an okay position to kind of maybe fade him, maybe pull Corey Davis and stack him with Derrick Henry and just let it ride from there. You should be okay. And then you're getting different without having to risk too many fantasy points. So That's definitely a game script I can see happening. I think Derrick Henry's going to be needed just to take some of the pressure off the game. So, again, I can talk for 45 minutes about this guy, fucking Earl Campbell 2.0.
Yeah.
But I get as much exposure as you can to him. There's very little opportunity for him to not pay off his tag.
I'm leaning more towards Henry over Aaron Jones at this point. I like saying Henry. I mean, they're right around the same ownership, and I feel way more confident about Henry than Aaron Jones.
And, dude, again, I expect that to transition, bro. Like, people are going to start coming off Henry when they realize they can't build that way.
Well,
and
so
then
what was the pricing on Aaron Jones? Aaron Jones is $3,000 cheaper. Look at this.
Yeah,
it's $3,000 cheaper. So of course, I think Aaron Jones is going to end up being a lot higher owned. We see that Jamal Adams is out. Sorry, Jamal Williams, fucking same thing. So potentially people will transition saying, look, Aaron Jones is just going to get more of those carries as opposed to losing carries to A.J. Dillon. So I think Aaron Jones, his ownership is going to skyrocket as we get closer. And Henry's is going to go way lower. So the question here is, can you... I know the answer, but should you play Derrick Henry and Tannehill in the same lineup? As far as negatively correlated, like our game scripts, do we have to pick one or the other?
No, you don't. This is one of those ones. So I play a lot of main slate too, and of course Derrick Henry's and Tannehill have been on the main slate past couple weeks. I've been playing Tannehill, and one of the things that I do is I set in rules to run a 3-1 correlation stack, but with just wide receivers and tight ends, no running backs.
Yeah.
The past 2 weeks in a row, that hasn't been the optimal way to run a Titan stack. It's been Ryan Tannehill, Corey Davis, and Derrick Henry.
Got it.
So I think it's absolutely fine, and honestly, that might be a pretty solid stack tonight. I don't know if I don't know where we'll get to Corey Davis here in a second to see what his ownership looks like, but I don't think you're doing anything wrong doing that. Now, keep in mind, you're probably going to have to fade Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
But given his ownership, I mean, he's over 60% projected at this point. So, and don't get me wrong, Aaron Jones is a massively great play. We've seen him get very, very little usage, and he's still a great fantasy output. And given the fact that there's not much rotational depth there, it means he's probably going to get increased usage. So don't get us wrong. We're not saying don't play Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
But you can see you're going to have to fade somebody. In this kind of lineup build, I think it might be okay to run Tannehill, Davis, Henry, fade Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
And you might be able to get Rodgers and MVS.
Depending on who we put a captain. Yeah, you're right, for sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, it gives you a little bit of flexibility. But, look, play Derrick Henry. Trust me, I'm going to play him. I'm just going to – if I die because Derrick Henry – bro, did you see that stiff arm from last week? Like, he's literally, he threw somebody. Like, he legit threw somebody. It was disrespectful.
I tried to get, who did he stiff arm? Was it Josh Norman? He murdered him a few weeks ago. Yes. I tried to fit that whole, on our YouTube thumbnail. I tried to fit that whole thing on there, and it wouldn't work. But just him stiff arming the dude.
Well, there's another. The one that he did the other week, dude, he pushed him so far that, like, even if you took a still of the actual stiff arm happening, the amount of force, he was still too far away. Like, your frames per second weren't high enough to actually capture the image. Like, it was disrespectful.
All right, we'll move on.
I don't give a shit. It's too late in the season. Run Derrick Henry as much as you can.
So I guess the last thing I'll say about this is by putting Henry and Tannehill together, you may be so different, because people just aren't going to levitate towards that or gravitate towards that. I'm still thinking of Josh Norman floating. Anyways, that's just an interesting roster construction, having those two guys together.
It's going to be hard to pay for it too. So
yeah,
if people are going to be shy of building tonight, they don't want to spend all their money on two fucking guys, but you might have to. All right, so let's move over to Tennessee wide receivers.
A.J. Brown, pretty well priced at $9K. A.J. Brown is he's like he's a DK Metcalf light almost at this point. I mean, he's so damn good. Grown-ass man status here at $9K. I think he's going to be forgotten about. Him and Corey Davis. Corey Davis is $7,800. We've actually seen, if you look at these guys, they like rotate it's almost like they're just taking turns, like having absolute ceiling games. So AJ Brown, he's got, he'll have a 11-point fantasy output. He'll have a 3-point every now and then, but overall, the dude's a grown ass man. He's going to come out and usually have a pretty good output. But look at Corey Davis here, man. Like Corey Davis,
Oh, no, I know.
Corey Davis has higher ceiling games and more often. He has a lower floor. I think his fantasy point average is probably a little bit. Actually, it doesn't really matter. But I'm just saying, like, if you had to choose between these two guys, I think most people would probably move towards AJ Brown because he's a name. But Corey Davis is also an amazing player, and last week he crushed it. The week before against Cleveland, crushed it. We had Cameron Batson at 1K and Khalif Raymond at 200. These guys are options, but I'd rather would just go with AJ Brown or AJ fucking Dillon. God, a lot of AJs going on here. So how do you handle these two guys? Can we get both of them in a lineup together if we fade Henry? Can you go quarterback, Brown and Davis? Like, how do we handle these two guys?
Yeah, man. I'm all for that. Corey Davis at 7,800, I think, is a very interesting captain option.
Yes, I agree.
He gives you a little bit of flexibility, and everybody knows Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, Aaron Rodgers are probably going to be the top 3 highest owned captains. So It's not like you have to get too crazy. You can run a lineup or two with one of these guys.
You can put AJ Brown in there too. I mean, he's a little expensive. Yeah. You have to punt at 2 positions, but if we have AJ Dillon in the flex, we can still afford all that. And they're going to be forgotten about. They're going to be under 10% owned in the captain.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think AJ Brown's going to be forgotten about. Look, everybody's going to be trying to get to Devontae Adams, and quite frankly, I think MVS might get a little bit more exposure tonight just because of his pricing too. So, I mean, with AJ Brown and Corey Davis kind of in that in-between area, I just don't know how many people are going to get to him. I think they're both in play. I personally like Corey Davis a little bit more. AJ Brown is obviously just a physical guy and has a tremendous upside. But Corey Davis has been on an absolute tear the past couple of weeks. Yeah. He came back from injury, and, I mean, look, man, he's got like 2 80-yard touchdowns or 2 75-yard touchdowns. Yeah. Oh, and again, this just goes down to my main slate stuff. I've been stacking a lot of Tannehill and Corey Davis, and I'll just look down at my phone. They just got possession and he scores. So I like Corey Davis. I think he's coming out to kind of make a statement too. Right, this is a big deal. And AJ Brown, let's see. Well, looks like matchups have Corey Davis on being covered by Jair Alexander. AJ Brown should be covered by Kevin King. If that's the case, AJ Brown's in a great spot.
Yeah,
he's just an absolute smash spot.
$1,200 cheaper too, and they're projected basically within like 0.8 points of each other. So I anticipate the optimizers to really push out more Corey Davis, considering the price point and the projections. But I think they're going to be right around the same owned. As of now, they're projected to be right around 30% in the flex, which is criminally low. I think both of these guys you should consider at captain. Absolutely consider both of these guys at captain for sure, and then try to get them in the flex as much as possible. Because if you're at 50 to 60% exposure on Corey Davis, you're doubling the field, and you can really get a lot of leverage by doing that, because he's the kind of guy who can absolutely be the optimal captain, or just be the second or third highest scoring guy on the slate. All right, so anything to add before we move over to Green Bay side?
Nope, love both of them.
All right, so we're looking at Green Bay here. Wide receivers, Devontae Adams is the man. We all know that, but he's at 11K. Alan Lazard, you have a big drop off here. Alan Lazard is at 5,600, MVS 4,800, and Equanimeous St. Brown at 200. So look, I like Lazard a lot here at 5,600. I think he's going to be relatively forgotten about. He's hovering around 20% ownership. Ever since Lazard came back, MVS just hasn't been getting as many snaps. Obviously, back when Lazard was injured, MVS he had the upside, but I think his opportunity is not going to be as much as we're used to. I like MVS a lot. I think he does have that upside, and I would actually consider MVS at captain here because of his pricing, and because he does have that upside. Yeah. And you can, in the flex, you just fade Devontae Adams and go with some other players in the flex. But to me, I'd rather get MVS at captain than in the flex, because I like Lazard at only $800 more. I think Lazard's going to have more opportunity, and Lazard is the kind of guy that you can go, man to man in the corner of the end zone, throw the ball up to him, and he'll catch it, sort of a thing. MVS is more of the across the middle guy, deep bombs. But I like Lazard a lot. So, anyways, tell me about your thoughts on Adams. How much of Adams are you going to get? If he's at 45% in the flex, are you going to try to be under, over that? And then who's your second favorite option here?
I'll get as much Adams as I possibly can. Again, it's going to be dependent upon my game script builds. Devontae Adams is Devontae Adams. I mean, he's a stud, man. The Titans' pass defense is not very good, so there is a huge opportunity for Devontae Adams to go off. And he's had a touchdown except for last week. Holy shit!
Oh wow,
dude, that's like 15 touchdowns in.
Yeah, he had a record. There was 8 straight games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Yeah, he had 8 straight games, and I don't know if that was the record, or he was close though.
Yeah, I mean, look, this says enough, right? If you can get him in your lineups, get him in your lineups.
Look at that. He's got.
But again, that means you're not playing Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, or Ryan Tannehill. So you're sacrificing somebody.
You sure are.
But I think it's worth it.
To me, I'd rather use the leverage. Look, I think you're going to have to get either Devontae or Aaron Jones. If you're super ballsy, you won't have either of them. There is a reasonable situation where they just aren't needed at a certain point, but I think you got to get at least one of those guys. You got to get Aaron Rodgers and or Devontae Adams or Aaron Jones. I don't think that's a hot take. Look, so do you like Lazard or MVS better? They're both around the same price.
I think both are in play. I like MVS a little bit better just because he's a bit cheaper. I mean, it's only $800, but I do like MVS. I think I agree more with your sentiment, though. I think MVS is a better play in the captain spot just because if he does have a game, it's probably going to be closer to those screen performances.
He's boom or bust. Boom or bust, dude, every time. There's no oh, he got 11 he had 11 fantasy points with 1 touch. It was just he fucking went off. That's how he is.
And that's I think that's what you would be building for if you have him in your lineup. So if you've got him a captain, that's solid. But Allen Lazard's probably a more consistent flex play.
Yeah.
He's not likely to have another 29.4 performance with Devontae Adams and MVS both healthy. Aaron Jones on the squad playing fine, right? But he is good for 6-7 targets. He can get 5 receptions for 80 yards and get you 10 to 15 points. So he's probably not going to break the slate, but he's going to be good for getting just the raw points. Other than that, I don't want any of the other guys in the player pool. I don't even know who they.
Igwaminius St. Brown.
Equator St. Brown.
He's $200. I mean, look, he's worth a shot. I don't think I'm going to get to him.
They signed Tavon Austin too, right? So now you're taking away 4th or 5th string rotations, and
I think isn't Tavon he's just a special teams guy though. I don't think he's getting wide receiver snaps, right?
Yeah, he's had a couple, but that's the point, right? Like, you're going to be playing these guys. He's eating into those 1 or 2 snaps that St. Brown's going to get or whatever. So that's not something I'm particularly interested in.
On the season, St. Brown is averaging around 30% of the snaps, but more recently he's between 15 to 25-ish. So, he's a deep GPP stab. I might only have him in one lineup. I probably won't even get him at all. But his ownership is, you're talking about, 7 or less percent in the just overall. So it's worth a stab at that ownership for sure. All right, you anything else to add here, or do you want to move on to tight ends?
No, let's move on to tight ends.
All right, so Green Bay's tight ends, you got Robert Tonyan, 6,400, good price for him. Mercedes Lewis at 600. Tonyan, this dude straight up got snubbed for the fucking Pro Bowl. Did you see that?
Yeah.
The scrub from the Jets, I blocked him out of my memory. Why am I forgetting about him? What's his name? Why am I blanking on him?
Herndon?
Chris Herndon. Didn't he make the? I'm pretty sure Chris Herndon made the Pro Bowl, or some ridiculous guy. I don't care about the Pro Bowl anymore. I'm pretty much done. I don't give a shit, considering Robert Tonyan has like 10 touchdowns, didn't make the Pro Bowl. It's insane. So
yeah, that's ridiculous.
So I mean, look at this. This dude has scored a touchdown in 5 straight games. Right? His output, he's not going to go off for 40 fantasy points. We know that. But in this particular game, at this price tag, throwing him at captain and getting the rest of your lineup high probability plays in the flex, you might not need your captain this week to be the highest scoring player on the slate. You just might not need it with all the talent that you need to fit together. He does have one 33-point game, but I think you're more likely to get a 20-point output from him if he does go off. He's got a safe floor. If you look at his targets, he's getting fives, fours, mostly in the last few weeks. He's getting between 30 to 70 yards, and he's getting a touchdown every game. I think he's a solid single entry play, or 3-max play. But considering his ownership, he's hovering less than 5% in the captain, less than 25% overall owned. I think you have to go heavy on this guy most likely because he's got a solid floor, and I think people are just going to forget about him because you can't build with him because of his price. He's right in the middle at 6,400. You just can't get to him a lot. So what are your thoughts on Tonyan, and can you get any Mercedes Lewis with a random touchdown?
No, Mercedes Lewis got his random touchdown, a week or two ago. So I think he's done. Normally I wouldn't get too high in recency bias, but I don't expect it. I mean, look, if you want to throw him in, I think Mercedes Lewis is okay. Take a stab at just because of the limited backfield rotation. So, he may get an extra snap or two at the 2 tight end position and open up on the goal line. But I just don't think so. Robert Tonyan, I love. I think he's a really great play. They're not really adjusting his price for his recent output. And I think that's more just because on this slate, if he's priced up a little bit more, I don't know if you can play anybody at all. So I love Robert Tonyan, and I think he's a pretty good captain play as well, especially at that price. He's going to give you the flexibility to start jamming in some of these guys. I love Robert Tonyan, and he's got a decent amount of touchdowns on the year, man. Like it's a pretty big deal. There's another guy that has similar receptions and yards, but only 2 touchdowns or 1 touchdown. I'll have to see if I can find that image again. But I like Robert Tonyan a lot. He's in a great spot.
All right, let's move over to the other side here. Tennessee tight ends. You got Jonnu Smith at 4,600. He's super low price considering his talent, but he's just been a little inconsistent this year. You got Anthony Ferkser at 1,600, who is absolutely popping in the opto. Like I would crunch out a bunch of lineups like 500 plus, and he was in like 60% of those lineups with no settings because of his price and his projection here. He seems to be popping, but I don't love Ferkser that much. You got Mecole Pruitt at 400, Jeff Swaim at 200. This might be one of the deepest tight ends, positions for this team. The fact that you could probably get away with spreading out your exposure on like 2 or 3 of these backups, but I don't think I'm going to get to that. Like I said, we have A.J. Dillon. There's no reason to go heavy on Ferkser, in my opinion. And if you wanted to get 3 or 4 lineups with him, you're still going to be above the field. So, look, Jonnu Smith, this guy was absolutely crushing earlier in the year, and there's a lot of red here lately. But you're still getting some 10, 12, 11 fantasy point outputs, and you see his pricing for all those. It was up above 6 for a lot of these, and now he's priced a little bit more accurately, and I actually like taking some stabs on him because we know he can go off. We know he can have a 2 touchdown game every now and then. So what are your thoughts on Jonnu Smith? I know you love the tight end position for Showdown. I do too. Can we get Jonnu at captain at 4,600?
100% we can. I love Jonnu Smith. I'm all for the tight ends, man. They're priced so well in this slate. And the thing about Jonnu Smith was there was some questions on whether or not he would be activated today or if he would play. I can't remember what it was specifically. Sorry, there's been a lot of sports I've been trying to keep up with at the same time. But I think that could pull some ownership away from him. That makes him a very unique play as well. And I think this is more of an MVS situation anyways. I think he does make an okay play in the flex spot a little bit more than MBS, but I think he is a more optimal captain play because he's again going to be one of these boomer bust guys.
Yes.
He's a guy who's going to go out and have 6-7 receptions for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's not something that I think he can. I mean, look, it was against Jacksonville, but 5 targets, 4 receptions, 84 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And he had 2 touchdowns against Buffalo, right?
He has 7 touchdowns. He has 7 touchdowns this year. You know, his targets have been going down, but last week he got 92% of the snaps last week at tight end, and that was with Pruitt and Ferkser healthy. So you just got to consider Jonnu Smith is going to be lower owned than he should be because of all this red. I think people are going to be scared from him. Like, I absolutely think it's possible that Jonnu Smith can score 2 touchdowns in this game and have one of those ceiling outputs for him. And if that's the case, having him at captain at 4,600 allows you to get Devontae Adams, both quarterbacks, Derrick Henry potentially, and then throw A.J. Dillon in there for a salary saver. So you're really only hoping that Jonnu Smith goes off, and the rest of these guys most likely will get you there. You know what I mean? So, Jonnu Smith is a great option. I don't like Anthony Ferkser. I think he's going to be higher owned than he should be. Yeah, there's a potential he can get a touchdown, but he's getting 40% of the snaps. He's just not in there. He doesn't have enough opportunity, and showdown opportunity is almost one of the most important things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's move over to kickers and defense, our favorite subject here. All right, so look, we got Steven Gostkowski, who's been kicking in the snow for a lot of his career, in the cold, in the wind, in New England. I think he can have some success in this game. I just feel like, once again, I know that the kickers were in the optimal. Was it one of the kickers or both? Actually, both kickers were in the optimal last night, right?
Yeah,
of course they were. Of course, I don't give a shit. I'm not gonna play these. I'm not gonna focus all my energy on a $4,200 Mason Crosby and a $4,000 Steven Gostkowski, who can miss 17 field goals in one half. There's no doubt about it. He's still pretty clutch, but I'm not risking wasting lineups on dudes who just might not even get an opportunity to kick the ball. We don't know. We have it's the biggest crapshoot in Showdown, is trying to figure out if your kickers are going to even have a shot. And with a 52 total, I think, right? Did I say it? Yeah, it's a high total. I'm just going to fade. I'm going to fade kickers, fade defense, and if they end up in the optimal, if Mason Crosby gets 17 fantasy points, then fine, I'll move on. There's just no way to predict or project what opportunity these kickers are going to have. How are you handling kickers? How are you handling defense? Start off with the kickers at these prices. You just can't fit them in that much, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't care about the kickers. 4,000 is too much, and 4,200 is too much.
Yesterday, those kickers were 30, 34, and 32 or something like that. If that was the case, you're saving $1,000. Maybe I consider it, but not at that price tag.
Yeah, no, I'm cool on the kickers. And defense, I won't be getting any exposure to either. I just think they're wastes of salary on this slate.
Yeah,
you can go down to A.J. Dillon and then stack with the MVS and have much higher upside than you would getting a kicker in defense.
Yeah, and they're going to – I think the ownership is going to be inflated on all 4 of these guys. By guys, I mean Packers defense, Titans, and both kickers, because when you crunch out a ton of lineups, they just have to fit at least one of these into every lineup in order to get you a high projected lineup, median lineup. Because for whatever reason, the kickers are always projected around 8 to 10 fantasy points, and we don't always see them hit that. So I'd rather just fade all these guys together and focus in on these are high-powered offenses. 3rd or 4th string wide receivers, 3rd string tight ends, they can score touchdowns. With the defenses, you're going to have to focus on, you're going to have multiple sacks, interception for a touchdown, safety, something like that, in order for them to actually make the optimal. All right, so anything else to add here before we move into our fades?
No, I'm good, man.
All right. Let's do our fade of the night here. Let's talk about, I guess we actually both agree on this.
What's your name? Tony! Fuck you, Tony!
Who we telling to fuck off here? Kickers and defense. Not a lot to talk about here. Look, we both toyed around with some Aaron Jones fades, some Devontae Adams fades, some quarterback fades. I don't think you need to focus on specifically fading those guys. If they work out in your lineups where they're just not in, it is what it is, because you're gonna have to go under the field on one of these skill position players. So for me, I'd rather not waste a roster spot on kickers and defense at all, because I'd rather just focus on some backup players in the skill position. Ellie, what are your do you have anything to add to that when it comes to this?
No, I just have no reason to try and jam any of these guys into the lineups. There's going to be too many opportunities elsewhere.
All right, we're gonna move over to our crown their ass segment. Danny Green, take us away.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
So Ellie, you're doing Robert Tonyan as your favorite DraftKings captain choice this week. This is a combination of ownership, salary, and roster construction. We're obviously, when we pick these, we're not just, obviously the smartest play is Aaron Rodgers or Devontae Adams or Aaron Jones or Derrick Henry. We know that, but you're going to be duped potentially with a ton of other players. So a way to get different in this particular slate is to go middle to lower range on your captain choice and fit in all those high-priced guys in the flex. Ellie, tell me about Robert Tonyan. I love this pick. I think I'm going to have a ton of him. Tonyan and maybe even Jonnu Smith here. What are your favorite few captains?
Yeah, I like Robert Tonyan. I like MBS, and honestly, I like Jonnu Smith a little bit. I think more in that order. Robert Tonyan, he actually might be more of a safer flex play to be completely honest with you, but he does have the opportunity to catch 2 touchdown passes, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. So in my 2 or 3 lineups where I have him prioritized, right, that's exactly what I'm game planning for and I'm game scripting for. So I'll end up stacking with Aaron Rodgers and probably not using Devontae Adams in that particular lineup because I'm expecting Tonyan to get most of the touches there, being the captain.
Yeah.
So that's really what I'm looking for specifically. But I think the same thing can be said for other guys like MBS and Jonnu Smith. These are all guys with two touchdown upside and big play upside. And when you're looking for a middling price captain on a slate like this, it's nice to know that you don't have to dip too far to think that there is a potential that one of these guys can get 2 touchdowns, right? Even A.J. Dillon, he has the opportunity to get a touchdown or 2 if he gets any of those goal line snaps like Jamal Williams would vulture. So I think it's going to be really important finding a guy in this value that you think has that kind of touchdown upside. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to jam in the guys that you want, that you know are going to get there.
So for me, A.J. Dillon is both a good large field tournament play and, a decent single entry play too. Like the probability of him scoring multiple touchdowns is probably pretty low. It's a lot of unknown, but if you compare his ownership to what his upside is as the backup for this team, we've all seen Jamal Williams get there in the captain. Like this graphic has featured Jamal Williams in the past for me. So I feel like on this particular team, having a backup running back, a big dude in cold weather, I really like the roster construction that this putting A.J. Dillon in the captain really gets you. If you can get there with a few receptions from him, 50 yards rushing, and a touchdown, I think he doesn't need to be the highest scoring player on the slate. I don't even think he needs to be like the top 3 highest scoring players on the slate because you can fit the rest of your both quarterbacks, Derrick Henry, like you can fit these high scoring guys all in the same lineup. And I think there's a lot of value there. So look, A.J. Dillon to me, this is a very deep. I'm not gonna go 80% A.J. Dillon in the captain. I might go 20 or 30% and then spread it out from there. But look, you have to consider throwing a few lineups with A.J. Dillon because you're able to just afford so much, so much value there in the flex. So, and then to me, obviously I love Robert Tonyan, but MVS and Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis are also some of my other favorite options here. I actually think Corey Davis is my second favorite option. I'm going to have a lot of Corey Davis at captain because of his ownership is Corey Davis's ownership is hovering around in the captain. Let's see, around 5%, and that's just a great number because you can be unique. You might only have to punt at one position. So, anyways, that's our thoughts on the captain position here. We're gonna move right over to a lineup build. Who do you want to build with first, Ellie?
Honestly, let's start with Corey Davis.
Corey Davis? Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do Corey Davis here. Let me see if I can find him. Where's he at? There he is. Corey Davis at captain. All right, so now we want to talk about quarterbacks. We got to get we should have Tannehill in this lineup if Corey Davis is our captain. Can we get Aaron Rodgers as well? We just have to, right?
Yeah, let's try it.
All right, so that means we're probably going to go away from Derrick Henry on this particular lineup. So do you want to get Jonnu Smith, or like how do you want to handle another Titans player here?
I think let's start with A.J. Dillon, to be honest with you.
Yeah, let's see where we can go there. So A.J. Dillon here plugged in, so you got a little 2-2 stack going on here. Do we want to specifically concentrate on a 4-2 or 3-3, or just see how the build goes?
Yeah, let's see how the build goes, and then we can kind of decide from there.
All right, so who's another? We have to get Devontae or Aaron, don't we?
Let's see.
Can we afford Devontae? If we go Devontae Adams, that leaves us with 3,700.
3,700. Okay, let's look at that and see where we can go from there.
And then we'll try an alternate build with Aaron Jones too. So 3,700 remaining. Where does that leave us? That leaves us with defenses. We don't want that. Ferkser, yeah. See, that's the problem. I think we need to have like around 5K or less remaining in that last spot. So
let's go Aaron Jones, and then
for this build, I think you're going to need Aaron Jones.
There's going
and 5,300. Tons of options here.
Right.
So you got MVS, Jonnu Smith, and the kickers. So like in this particular case, I think we should go Jonnu because a 3-3. That's pretty nice. Or you can go MVS. I mean, obviously you can go MVS, but that's a 4-2. That's a reverse. That's a 2-4. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'd rather spread it out because I think can be a shootout. So I'd rather get Jonnu.
Right. Corey Davis, you're going to be a little bit more. A little less chalky, so I think going 3-3 is probably fine for this.
Yeah.
If you want to run the 2-4 reverse, then fuck yeah. I mean, MVS is a solid play, but again, I like him better at captain, just because of his upside. But this is an interesting build.
Yeah, I like this build a lot. But let's say this particular game script, we've got both running backs going here. Can we pull A-Raj out? And consider maybe we don't need Aaron Rodgers. Can we see what a build looks like without Aaron Rodgers?
Yes.
All right. So who do we want to plug in here? Do we want to throw Devontae in and just say, look, we think that Devontae can have a ceiling game of like 3 touchdown receptions or something, and then Aaron Rodgers just isn't necessary.
Yeah, I think that's 100% viable.
All right. So let's throw Devontae in. That leaves us with 5,900 in the flex. I really like this build because you can go Lazard. I know that now I would probably consider going Tennessee on this one instead of getting 2 pass catchers in here without Aaron Rodgers. Like I think Jonnu here, you got 1,300 left, so you got Tannehill, Corey Davis, and Jonnu Smith run back with both running backs from Green Bay and the best player in the game potentially, Devontae Adams. Anything to change here?
No, I like that build. You're leaving some salary on the table, so you'll be different. And look, if you're uncomfortable with that build, you take Aaron Jones out and throw in Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that gives you a lot to pivot off of.
Yeah, that's actually let's see if we can do that. And then that leaves us with 3,700, so we'll have to go down to like a real low there. But still, you have options.
Right.
All right, so let's build one more lineup here. Who do you want to throw in? Do you want to throw in Tanyan? See what we can do.
Not to give away the house, but I want to try your guy.
All right,
A.J. Dillon.
Let's try A.J. Dillon and just see what this gets us. And because look, if we're talking about a backup running back in the captain, you gotta be like, wow, that's stupid. Well, just watch what happens when we do this. So, both quarterbacks, you want to try that, or how do you want to handle this?
Yeah, let's run both quarterbacks.
All right, both quarterbacks. Do we want to fade Aaron Jones on this lineup? I'm assuming, right?
I think we're gonna have to.
So can we do Devontae and AJ Brown or Corey Davis? Look at that, dude. You can do Devontae and AJ Brown here, and then still have 5,700 remaining, and you can get MVS. You can get Alan Lazard. This is why I'm saying
like that a lot.
This is why I'm saying AJ Dillon at captain is a hell of a play, because look, you could stack up all these high scoring dudes. Every one of these dudes in the flex could have 20+ points, and AJ Dillon, if AJ Dillon can get you a touchdown and then 15 fantasy points, you might be living large here, man. All right, guys. So, final thoughts, Ellie. Anything to send us out with here? Thank you guys for joining us. Ellie, take us out. What are your thoughts on this game, final score, and some roster construction advice?
Final score 35-31 Titans. I think Derrick Henry rushes for 185 yards and 3 touchdowns today. So, yeah, man, this is going to be a fun game. I'm excited for it. As far as roster construction goes, just feel free to get different tonight, guys. Get crazy. This is going to be the easiest night to duplicate a lineup.
Yep.
So I think tonight you just try something that you haven't done before. If you got a gut feeling, run with it. Post it in the chat. We'll run it with you.
All right, guys. Take it easy. We'll see you later. Thank you.